to the next lesson in this racing lawnmower quick start guide. What we're going to talk about here is this top idler, top tensioner. So what I've got going is I've got my jack shaft set up right here. I've got a 3-inch pulley on the transaxle, and then what I need to do is I need a way to tension or tighten this belt. So the setup with what I've got going right now is, of course, I got the vice grips holding a spare belt, and I do this purely for the build, so I can align it, see where it's going to sit, height wise and stuff like that. So the one thing you want to do, and I'll show you right here, is you want to make sure that this idler is lined up with the jack shaft and the transaxle pulley. So that's important that that's lined up. So what I've done, as you can see right there, is I've taken a piece of 3/4 inch square tubing, and then I've welded some flat bar on the end with holes drilled in it, so I'm bolting it to the frame. And then I've got this other piece of square tubing that's sliding over the top of it. So let me move back down here. So let's see. You can kind of see the flat bar. I just welded it on the end, and I've done the same out here. You can see where I've got the 2 bolts holding it in place. What that does is gives me a stable fixture from end to end. And then what I did is, I don't have a mill, but I needed a slot, so I drilled some holes close to each other, and then turned around and took a skill saw, not a skill saw, but a hacksaw, and cut that out and just built me a slot, kind of a poor man's mill. So it only took me about 20 minutes to do. It's really not that bad. Drill some holes close together and then cut them with a hacksaw and then clean it up with a file. So not bad at all. So anyway, what this does, this is kind of a little overkill, but I wanted to try this method, is I've built me a tensioner. I was actually working on a car the other day and seen how the idler worked, and I thought, you know what, that's a good way to go. So I've got this set up so that I can adjust it in and out from the top side, and then what I'll do is this one holds the pulley on, and then this one is just to hold it tight. So, and I'll probably put a jam nut here. You don't need to go this far. You could I probably could have got away with just either doing the slot with 2 bolts to hold it in place, and I could just push it over by hand, or I could drill some different holes, drill a hole every 1/2 inch, and I could just move it over. I've seen that done. This one's my daughter's, and if she's out running it and for some reason I'm not able to be there at the races, which happens, then she'll be able to adjust this very easily, and that's why I've done that way. So what I've got is this, let's talk about calculating belts real quick. There's a bunch of formulas out on the internet. I tried a couple of them. The one that I really like is you take the diameter of your pulley and you times it by 1.57. You take the diameter of this pulley and times it by 1.57. And then you measure the distance between center, from that center of that pulley to that center, and you times it by 2. And then what you do is you add all that up. So, and what it's doing is it's taking the distance from here for this leg, the distance here for this leg, that's the 2 distance between the centers, and then it's calculating the radius of your pulley from right through there. That gets you really close. So this one turns out to be, this is a 3-inch pulley on this end times 1.57. That's a 4.5 inch pulley right there times 1.57. And then the distance was 10 3/4. And what it came up to, when I calculated it out, it was 33 point something. There was a remainder. You probably won't have an even number. And what you want to do on this top belt, where I want this to be a tighter belt, there's no clutch type engagement of it, then what I'll do is I'll probably go down and I'll pick up a 33-inch belt to start with. And I'll put it on and tighten it down and see how much slack or see if it hits anything, see how it's going to ride. And I might maybe have to go to a 32. But that gives me a reference point to start with. On the bottom belt, if this was the bottom belt, where it is the clutch, I would round up. Instead of going with a 33-inch belt, I would go up to a 34-inch belt. That way I get a little bit extra play, and that will help with the way the clutch behaves. So there's a lot of different formulas out there. They're all about the same. The other thing you can do when you're trying to figure out belt length, since you've moved things around, we've moved all this stuff, you can take an old belt, you can put a mark on it, and you can pull it through by hand and then have someone mark it, and then lay it out on the ground and get a linear measurement with a tape measure. I've done both of them, and I've found that this formula, it's pretty close. So I just use it to start with. I might end up having to take one belt back and go up a size or down a size. So anyway, but that's something to look at. So on the bottom with that same formula, when I was doing some research, they said if you had idlers to, like this idler even, you would want to add a 1/2 inch for that movement. I found that doing that didn't quite work out, so I just found to, on the top belt I round down depending on what the numbers show, and then on the bottom belt I'll go up, and it's worked for me. So anyway, so this is what we've got going. On some of my other machines, I've done it differently. I've had more room down here, and so I've mounted a piece of flat bar that was bent up and then mounted the idler to it, and then I just pivoted it out. So that will work too. Tried going this way. When I have to adjust the other one, it takes 2 people. I have to have me underneath it, loosening, and someone on top with a pry bar pushing that top idler over, and then we tighten it down. It's kind of a fight, so I'm going to start moving to this method right here, where I don't have to climb under the machine. I can just loosen some bolts and tighten this over and then tighten them back up. So anyway, either way, all you want to do is make sure that you get a good tension, good taut on this belt up here on the top, and make sure that it's lined up and down. And I think that's all you'll really need. So from there, the next thing is to figure out our shift linkage here, and that's this mechanism right here. So what I'll do is run a rod that runs down to here and then hooks to the pivot. So, and that's what this hole right there is for, that you've been seeing throughout this build. So that'll be next. And then the one thing I am going to do with this machine is I am going to weld the transaxle up. I've done several of them. I like the way they behave, and I trust them more. They don't corner as well, but they're a lot stronger. So probably the last lesson that we do is I'll pop that apart and we'll weld up the pinion gears. So I think that's about it for right now. And I'll build that linkage and we'll move on to the next lesson.